Alright, Section 2, Engine Starting and Cab Control. Introduction. Switch fuel priming engine cranking is located with the equipment rack of each engine. All other basic equipment is used during locomotive operation for all of the locations. Cabinet mounted number 1 and number 2 switch fuse panels. Cabinet mounted number 1 and number 2 engine control panels. Number 1 and number 2 circuit breaker panels, and 4 locomotive control stand. Operating panels. Number 1 engine are front of the number 1 main electrical cabinet, which faces inside of the operating cab of the operator panel. The number 2 engine are at the left walkway side of the number 2 cabinet and are accessible through the latch door. Alright, engine starting cooling for control figures number 2-2. Engine fuel priming engine starting switch. The switch located with the equipment rack for the engine room with a 3-position rotary switch used with the fuel priming and with the engine starting with before attempting to start with the diesel engine with the isolation switch in the locomotive cab must be placed in the start position. Rotary switch must be then placed in the fuel prime position, held there for 10 to 15 seconds to operate fuel pump. Layover shifter must then be in position. And the rotary switch in place in the engine start position, held but no longer within 20 seconds until the engine starts. Lay shaft lever. Engine mounted hand operated lever operates the injector racks used for the position injector racks during the engine cranking, thereby providing immediate supply with the fuel to the cylinders. Low water reset push button. Check the low water reset button push button after every engine start. Press reset when necessary. Alright, switch and fuse panel. With the panel shown in figure 2-3 with located with the electrical cabinet that forms of the rear wall of the locomotive cab position directly below with the engine control panel located with the upper left hand corner of the electrical cabinet, and D14 alternator field 60 ampere fuse. The D14 alternator receives excitation through a pair of slip rings connected to the low voltage DC auxiliary generator output. To protect the winding 60 ampere fuse provided with the excitation strip of the fuse must be good and in place at all times during the locomotive operation. In the event that the fuse has blown with the D14 alternator excitation, resulting power output will cease and setting off no power alarm and reducing the engine speed to idle. Shows the number 1 switch fuse panel, alternator fuse, auxiliary ground relay, fuse test, main generator, battery, starting and fuse, auxiliary generator, ground relay, cutout, special. Alright, auxiliary generator field at 30 amp fuse of the field excitation circuit with the auxiliary generator is protected by a 30 amp fuse. The fuse must be good in place at all times during the locomotive operation. In the event that the fuse is burned out, it stops auxiliary generator output with the low voltage system and also stops the fuel pump operation. Alternator failure is no power alarm would then occur, but the engine will go into the idle speed within stop with a lack of fuel. Ground relay cutout switch. The purpose of the ground relay cutout switch is limited to the ground protective relay of the locomotive circuit during the certain shop maintenance inspection must always be kept closed in normal operation. Otherwise, protection offered with the ground relay will nullify impossible serious equipment damage could occur when it may be opened. However, in the event of extreme emergency, will the upon receive the definite instruction to the effect of the responsibility officer of the railroad. On special order with the toggle type of the ground relay cutout switch may be provided. Multiple pole switch prevents excitation over the main generator speed up with the diesel engine when the ground relay is cut out. Fuse test equipment and facilitate testing fuse of the pair with the fuse test block with the test light with the test toggle switch are installed with the fuse panel. The fuse must be readily tested and followed with the first move of the toggle switch on position to make sure that the fuse test light is burned out with the extinguishing of the light with the moving of the toggle switch to the off position. Fuse across the test block within the metal ends of the fuse are firm contact with the blocks. If the fuse is good, the light will come on. If the fuse is burned out, the light will come on and a new fuse is required. Will not come on and a new fuse is required. It's always advisable to test fuse before installing them and doing with the circuits. Always in isolating circuits is a question of the opening of their switches before the changing and replacing the fuses. Auxiliary generator fuse. The fuse connect with the auxiliary generator low voltage system protect with the extents of the except for the current demands with a 150 ampere fuse installed with a basic auxiliary generator and 250 and 350 ampere fuse installed for heavy duty generator in the event of the fuse burned out with the top auxiliary generator output with a low voltage generator system. Also stops fuel pump operation. Alternator failure with a no power alarm would then occur with the engine will go into idle speed with the top of the lack of the fuel. Caution 250 350 ampere fuses for the same physical size of starting an 800 amp fuse due to the interchangeable fuses. Starting at an 800 amp fuse, starting fuse with only during the period with the diesel engine is actually started with at this time when the battery current flows through with the fusion starting with the contactor with the cranking motors. Although the fuse should be placed in good condition, always left in place with no effect for the locomotive operation over the engine starting with a defect. The fuse can be detected with the attempting with the start of the engine since at the time, even to the starting with the contactor closed with the cranking circuit is open. Caution: 800 ampere starting fuse with the same physical side with the 400 ampere starting fuse with only many of the locomotive bound, but be careful not to interchange the fuses. If doubt exists with the fuse rating, the fuse may be open and check with the 800 ampere fuses with a double fuse length with the will. The 400 ampere fuse has a single link main battery to knife switch. Large double pole single throw knife switch is the lower portion of the fuse panel with the main battery switch is used to connect the battery to the locomotive low voltage system and should be kept closed at all times during operation. If the switch is left open, the fuel pump cannot be started. Lights would not be in function and the engine could not be started. If the switch is open after the engine has been started, the auxiliary generator will continue to supply with low voltage need, but the batteries will not receive charge. The switch may be opened during certain shop maintenance procedures, instances where the engine is shut down and the locomotive taking out of service to the extent of the layover, and this will prevent the battery from being discharged in the event. The lights or other low voltage devices inadvertently left operating during the layover. The particular attention should be given the notation of the switch cautions against opening the switch immediately after engine shutdown. At least 35 minutes should be allowed for allowing engine shutdown before switch is open with load operation at or above the position number 3. With this cool down time with the turbocharger bearings can be considered to accumulate below the throttle position number 3, even though through 35-minute time with the turbocharged auxiliary loop oil pump begins the engine shutdown. AR-12 generator field 100 ampere fuse. The AR-12 generator proceeds with excitation through the pair of the slip of the rings connected with the D14 alternator output with a controlled rectifier. Fuse is provided with a control with the rectifier generator field windings, various control with the devices. Circuits that use the D14 alternator power source with the signal generator field fuses, the locomotive powers, alarm bell rings, power light on the engine control panel, and blown fuses must be replaced before operation can be continued. Alright, figure 2-4, circuit breaker panel. Shows the control location, fuel pump, RV, motor control, main motor control, windshield wiper lights, headlights, auto water drain, overspeed, cab heater, water cooler, toilet load, test motor control, switch module, control turbo, accelerator control, locomotive control, fuel pump, RV, motor control, load test module control, and turbo accelerator charge. The number 1 circuit brake panel located with the operator cab position right switch with the fuse panel with directly over the engine control panel with the number 2 circuit with the breaker panel side with the number 2 electrical cabinet with locomotive walkway. Access for the number 2 panel is provided through the latch door. All breakers are open with the positive and the negative side with the circuit to provide with complete isolation. The circuit breaker panels contain the following. Control 40 ampere circuit breaker with the circuit breaker must be in the on position with the locomotive operation set up with the fuel pump control with the circuit with the engine started with the LNC engine that's running. The power is supplied with the breaker with the auxiliary generator to the main operating control. Local control 30 ampere circuit breaker with the circuit breaker must be on the on position before the operation of the locomotive is possible. During the operation, establish local power with the auxiliary generator to operate the heavy-duty switchgear of the various control devices. Fuel pump circuit breaker. The 3-pole circuit breaker protects the fuel pump motor circuit. It must be in normal locomotive operation. The RV motor control circuit. The double-pole breaker located with the feed the operating motor with the multiple operated ganged switches that control the direction current flow with the traction motor field with the current direction of the locomotive travel. So the control power is required to remove the RV transfer switchgear with any other position. RV breaker must be closed with the power transfer to take the place. An opening of the RV breaker to prevent the switchgear with the already happening in the position with a properly conducted with the traction motor current. But interlocking prevents the operating setup with the conflict with the transfer switch in position. In addition, the circuit breaker is guarded to prevent accidental movement. The MB motor control circuit breaker on units equipped with the dynamic brake with a double pole brake located with the feed with the operating motor over the multiple pole with the motor operated with the gang switches with the control of the motor field with the armature connection with each of the dynamic braking power operation. System control power is required to move the MB transfer switchgear with any other position. MB breaker must be closed with the power transfer to be placed. Opening of the MB breaker does not provide the switchgear for the already being positioned properly with exactly motor or braking current with the interlocking prevents operating setup to conflict with the transfer switching position. In addition, the circuit breaker is guarded guard to provide accidental movement. Windshield heater circuit breaker with a special extra with a transparent medical coating with a vacuum spray with the inner surface with illuminated laminated windshield glass with electrical connections are made to coating with electrical power is applied with the resistance of the coating caused with the heat to be given off with a rate of 1 watt per square inch. Keep the window surface free of frost and ice with the breaker protect with the window for the heater circuit. Light circuit breaker with a breaker base must be on with the supply power with the individual switches provided with the number, class, platform, cabinet, hood, controller, and ground or gauge lights. Headlight circuit breaker with this breaker protect with the headlight circuit with the train line circuit with it must be on to provided current with the headlight and circuit with through the train line and light or in the rear of the consist. Here are your automatic water drain circuit breaker with the arm. One unit equipped with the automatic water drain with the water temperature with the thermostatic switch for the cab heater piping with the approach with the freeze with the automatic drain valves are energized with the engine shut down with no AC voltage with the NVR is dropped out with any reason. Caution, cab heater piping can become cold even with the engine running its heater supply with the return of the cab shut-off valve closed. Overspeed circuit breaker with the train. Overspeed with the locomotive speed. Recording with the instrument. Bringing with the penalty. Application of the brakes with the operation. Pneumatic control with the drop of the locomotive with the power with the overspeed with the protection. Breaker protects the overspeed magnet valve circuit. Cab heater circuit breaker with the protect for the circuit for the cab heater blower motors water cooler circuit breaker with the electrical water cooler is provided with the breaker protect for the circuit. Toilet circuit breaker with a flush type of the toilet is provided with electrical immersion with a heater prevents the freeze up of the flush tank water and the breaker protects the circuit. Load test motor control circuit breaker with the unused equipped with a special extra provision with the automatic loading with the locomotive with the on-dynamic braking grid with the circuit breaker protect for the circuit with the load test transfer switch gear with the brake band with the circuit breaker remain in the on position at all times. This will help provide with the possible accidentally loading on the grid during the consistent operation on the road. Caution: do not load the unit on the dynamic braking grids during the movement on the track. The locomotive must be standstill during the loading testing. Module control circuit breaker with electrical control circuits are assembled on a plug-in module cards facilitated maintenance. Local control power is supplied with a menu with the circuit breaker with a breaker project for the local control circuits on the board. Turbo auxiliary pump circuit breaker with the circuit breaker must be on the on position. Start with the engine operating with the turbocharged auxiliary oil pump must remain with the on position. Provide auxiliary lubrication with the turbocharger engine start with after the engine shut down with a guard is provided with on over the breaker to prevent accidental movement over the off position. Engine control panel with the engine control panel with the figure 2.6 for the 2.5 and 2.6 provided with each for the engine section DDA40X locomotive with the panel containing with the switches, alarm lights with the battery charging indication. Choose the number 2 engine control panel and number 1 engine control panel. Or a brief description of individual function files. Automatic water drain light. On the locomotive units equipped with the automatic water drain light thermostat with the cooling system set for the water temperature for the after the engine has been shut down with the coolant near freezing temperature thermostat engine. Energizes magnet valve with the opening with the drain vent with the cooling is drained with the system with the interlocking prevents accidental drainage with the engine operation. The circuit interrupter with the drip light with the light comes on with the immediate with the response with the heavy duty interrupter snaps open with the isolate with the motor with the flash over power with the drop on with the time with the ionized with the clear with the interrupter with the flash motor with is vented with about 1/2 minute with the timing device actually automatically close interrupter contact with the pump and power that is reapplied with the action with the locomotive operation. Light goes with the operation may continue normally. Routine report should be made as operated and required. Often the ground relay will trip along with the circuit interrupter occur with the ground relay will reset the automatic either immediately after with the time of the delaying depending on the equipment used. Warning: the circuit interrupter is located with the lower portion of the main electrical cabinet which the interrupter trips are under power load sharp report over the curves of this. Normally the interrupters reset automatically after about 1.5 minutes. High voltage ground fault light. The light indicates the electrical path of the ground with a curve with the ground. A group of 5 diodes. Main generator has failed. The light comes on with the alarm sign with the operator should wait 10 seconds for the press for the ground reset button located with the control stand figure 2.7. The power with a reapply. The light for the circuit breaker has tripped on with the conjunction with the ground fault. When such for the case, the power will reapply with the interrupter it resets. If there is no ground reset button with the control stand, the locomotive will be equipped with a speed automatic ground relay reset with the operator need to take no action to reset with the relay. Such automatic reset devices are equipped for lockout and automatic reset with a nullified for after each of the specific numbers of the trips after given the number of trips over the time period on the basic locomotive When the high voltage ground fault alarm occurs the third time using the ground reset button twice, the affected unit should be isolated. Alright, load test light. With the light indicating the load test knife switch has been located with the electrical cabinet load type test position. Caution: before returning the load test switch to the normal operating position, make certain the load test motor's control circuit breaker units equipped with the on position turbocharger or auxiliary power pump motor light. This light will come on as soon as the main battery switch, the turbo lube pump circuit breaker are closed. Then it shows you the locomotive controller and its special equipment. It indicates the turbo auxiliary lube oil pump is supplied with the low oil with the turbocharger remaining for approximately 35 minutes with the main power with the switch with the close with the fuel pump engine. Start switch operated with a 35-minute period with the time cycle will again the reestablished for the light remains on another 35 minutes. Light will also become remaining with approximately 35 minutes for the engine stop with the provide with the indication of the auxiliary lube oil pump and supply oil cools the turbocharger bearings. No power alarm light. No power alarm light will come on alarm will anytime with the AC voltage NVR opens for the isolation switch of the run position of the emergency run. The ER switch on the on position special order, the locomotive must be equipped with the ER switch. Locomotives will come on if the main generator field fuse blow with the D14 failure occurs if the engine stops. Hot engine light. The hot engine light operates along with the alarm bell warning operated with the engine cooling water system reach for the excess of the temperature where the hot engine light comes back with the engine speed. Powers are reduced lower level to hasten with the engine cooling to prevent possibility of damage. High oil, low oil, crankcase, oil pan pressure, and low water light. The mechanism to detect low engine lubricating oil pressure is built on the engine governor of the mechanism action with the true oil with the pressure failure by dumping oil from the engine oil leading to the governor. Either an event with a small button will pop out of the governor, indicating that the mechanism has tripped the low oil alarm switch. The amber light with the engine control panel will come on, indicating the low oil mechanism is tripped. When alarm occurs, the necessary determine whether the crankcase pressure of the water detector has tripped the dump engine oil line heading with the governor, whether the true oil failure has occurred. This can be determined by the checking of the crankcase pressure of the lower water detecting device figure 3.2, providing reset buttons with a protruding upper button indicating excessive oil pressure, protruding lower button indicating low water. Warning: when it determined if the crank pressure of the detector is tripped, to make no further engine room and inspections. Do not attempt to restart the engine, isolate the unit, and drain the cooling system in accordance with the railroad regulations. Or if the low water or crankcase detectors have not tripped, the oil and water levels are satisfactory. Hot oil valve for units of equipment may have been open. Valve will reset automatically when the oil temperature goes down, and the engine may be restarted after the cooling down period. However, the power operation under these circumstances is not recommended until maintenance personnel have checked the engine systems. Caution: if the engine restarted with shutdown immediately if the oil pressure is idle less than 15 psi. Miscellaneous switches. Switches include with the circle of the various light with the devices on the locomotive. Switches are closed with the desired to operate with the class light with the number of lights, for the engine room light with the platform lights. On units equipped with the dynamic brakes, lock wire shut out switch provide with the disable the dynamic brakes if the particular units of the fault occur. Headlight control switch, twin sealed beam, front and rear headlights are controlled by the front and rear front headlight with the switches locomotive control panel dimming switch of the mounted on the right side of the controller. Before these switches function, 30 amperes headlight circuit breaker must be placed on. Locomotives equipped with a multiple unit operation, remote headlight control switch is mounted with the engine control panel with a remote headlight switch provides operation of the rear unit. Headlight from the lead unit switch positions are set on each of the valves. On the lead unit, if only a single locomotive is being used to play for the switch in a single unit position, multiple units, or if the trailing units are coupled with the number 2 long hood end of the lead unit play for the switch on the control and coupled with the long hood end position. And multiple units, surfaces and trailing units should be coupled with the number 1 short hood ended of the lead unit with the play switch for the control and coupled with the short hood ending position. 2 interchanging units, units operating between the other units, multiple units, and consist of placed on the switch in single unit position. On trailing units, last unit with the multiple unit consists that should have the headlight control switch placed in the control coupled at the either end position. Engine stop push button. Engine stop push button is located with the engine control panel. One of the buttons pressed to the engine at the end of the locomotive until the ultimately shut down. Emergency fuel cutoff push button. The emergency fuel push button is located numbered one engine control panel, either with a fuel filter opening. When any one of the buttons are pressed, both engines on the locomotive will immediately shut down. The throttle lever of the lead unit will can be used to shut down all units and consist. Isolation switch. The isolation switch has two positions, one labeled start, stop, isolate, the other located to run. The function of these two positions is as follows. 1. Start and stop isolation position. Isolation switch is placed in position whenever the diesel engine is to be started. The start switch is effective with only one of the isolation switches in position. Start position is also used to isolate the unit, and when an isolated unit is also used to isolate the unit. An isolated unit develop power respond with the controls. In the event the engine will run at idle speed, regardless of the throttle position, the position will also sound with the alarm bell. In the event of the excitation limited to the ground relay, no power, loop, oil alarm, it will not, however, stop the alarm in the event of the hot engine. If the locomotive is equipped with a remote control traction motor cutout switch, isolation switch must be placed on the isolation position before cutout switch is operated. 2. The run position. After the engine has been started, the unit can be placed in the online by moving the isolation switch to run position. The unit will respond to control and will develop power with a normal operation. Alright, your locomotive controller. The locomotive controller is shown in figure 2.7 with the contained with the switch, the gauge of the operating leverage, U of the operator during the guard operation locomotive, the individual component of the controller, describe the gauge of the functions in the following paragraphs. Air gauge. These gauges indicate various pressures concerned with the operation of the locomotive and the train brake. Selector valve. The controller equipped with the selector valve within the locomotive is equipped with the dynamic brakes necessary for the manually controlled transition. Trailing units not equipped with the automatic transition. One of the units equipped with the lever serve with the established power circuit with either with these function the position of the lever and equipped with lower of the two illuminated windows located in the upper left corner of the controller and front panel. The lever is spring loaded so. It shows the socket selector lever, ratchet, indicator, switching, operating cam. The movement all the way with the one direction index of the selector switch knobs are only with the direction. It must be allowed with the return center position for the index and gamma to either direction. When the selector is indexed with the B of the braking position, the motor braking transfer switch operate with the braking position with the throttle lever switch move freely without notching to the control of the braking rheostat with the dynamic braking strength. When the lever is moved to the center of the opposition, all circuits are open in position as G with the location with the control M and the unattended with the trailing units. For operation under power, the lever would be indexed for the number 1 position, seating position number 2 and 3 with the 4 which would be used when necessary to cover the transition on the new non-automatic trailing units operating in a locomotive consists. Throttle lever. The throttle lever actuates switch for the control of the established low voltage electrical servo of the engine governor for the purpose of controlling engine speed with the throttle 10 position, namely stop idle with the running speed 1 through 8 as shown in figure 2.9. Each of these 3 positions shown with the yellow illuminated indicator upper left hand corner with the controller with the 2-step engine to stop all engines. Throttle lever is pulled all the way from the controller, then moved the 1 step beyond idle to stop position. Idle position as far as forward as the throttle lever can be moved with pulling it away from the controller. Each running notch with the throttle increases the engine speed an average of 90 RPM, starting at 320 RPMs at the idle and running 1 going at 950 RPMs at full throttle. Figure 2.9 shows the throttle idle, stop, reverse, neutral, forward, insert, and remove. When operating dynamic braking in lever B, the throttle lever switch of the dynamic braking handle that moves without notching control dynamic. Or the versatile level has 3 positions, forward, neutral, and reverse. The direction of the locomotive moves in control of the movement of the lever forward and reverse position. With the lever neutral but no power to develop, the throttle is open. The reverser level should be moved only when the locomotive is standing still. Reverser level can be moved with the controller only when the lever is in neutral position, throttle idle, and when the selector off. Removal for the reverser locks to the operating control of the controller of the reverser should be removed with the controls in all but lead unit multiple unit locomotive consists. Operating switch is a group of switches located along the front face of the control of each identified by a nameplate indicating switch function. The switches are on the on position when moved upward before the engine is to be started by the control and fuel pump switch must be placed on. The obtainment of the power over the locomotive, the generator fuel switch on the on. The obtainment of the control engine speed with the engine run switch must be on. Three important switches are grouped at the right side of the controller. They must be placed for the opposition of the control of the trailing units. On special order function for the operating switches may be modified. For example, the engine run switch may be eliminated. Fuel pump switch may be substituted. In this case, if the fuel pump function is removed for the control of the fuel pump switch, isolation switch must then be used to provide secondary control of the engine speed. Other switches control standing attendant call for the various lights, and they are placed as needed. Horn, lever, or switch. The basic locomotive of the horn valve, the lever are located with the upper left of the controller. Lever operates the unit's air horn. On a special various stick type of the horn switches may be employed with the activated train line air horn magnet valves. All horns connected to the train line operate with the levers operated. Standing switches. Standing number 1 truck toggle switch. Signal with the switch if it is not train line with the switch provides all sign. Only the number 1 axle lead unit with this consists of the method of the standing decree addresses on the rail in adequate most conditions. Standing lever switch. When the standing switch lever is operated, electrical energy is directed to the interlock reverse switch or given to operate either forward or reverse standing magnet valve. All the units consist of the basic switch may be operated with any direction control occurs standing with a not latching. Directional stand switching must be provided as an operational strobe with the switch may be delatching and requested by the railroad. Electrically controlled standing is a basic system used by since the locomotive may be operated multiple older units that are equipped only with a pneumatic control standing. Train line pneumatic control standing may be provided as an optional extra additional electrical control. In such cases, the train line actuating pipes must be connected between the units. The bell ringer. When the bell ringer is operated, the compressed airs are directing the locomotive warning bell operator. Miscellaneous switches at the left control of the dynamic braking circuit power reduction switch. Rheostat cab light switch. Various other the miscellaneous switches may be located to the left of the controller. Headlight dimming switch. A 5-position switch located with the control of the right of the throttle with the 1 position provided for the headlights on the both ends of the locomotive. The other position provided for the bright and for the medium headlight, either front or the rear over the locomotive. For the switch of the function 2 headlight switches on the controller as well. For the headlight circuit breaker on the switch, fuse panel must be placed on. Load current indicating meter. The meter indicates the locomotive with the pulling force of the during operation. Under power that indicates retarding force of the during the dynamic brake with the meter. Needle swing with the right to indicate the current in the single traction motor circuit with the during the power operation. While with the 1500 amperes making maximum reading on the scale of the meter needle swings to the left indicating dynamic braking current. 800 amperes being maximum reading of the scale with the red area of the meter face of the indicator of the current level to too high with the continuous operation. Short time on the rating of the under meter gives the time limitations at various current levels with the time as new non-cumulative that is concerned with the conditions under the locomotive operator. It is not necessary that intermittent periods required with a high current operation. Dynamic braking regulator control current is 700 amperes, but the locomotive is equipped with extended range dynamic braking and low track speed. Regulator allows 750 amperes because the grid cooling is most effective at lower speed. Cab heater control with the heater of the locomotive operation built with the control stand with the second heater is located with the observer station with the observer heater receives hot water for the number 1 engine with the observer heater receives the hot water for the number 2 engine. Engine heater is equipped with the following circuits. Blower switch, speed switch, on and off low, medium and high speed, blower operation knob, and the direction blower with the windshield defrost with the outward operation control personnel. 3, a valve to turn off the hot engine water on the heater on and off. The caution on and off valve must be on the opposition cooling system of the drain with the recommended the on and off valve be placed on the opposition several minutes before the engine is on. Shut down. Always play with the keep of the valve with the opposition after the engine is started. Alright, your windshield heater switch. On the special order, the windshield may be equipped with a transparent with a coating and an inertia for the windshield layer for the coating with a conductor with electricity given off with sufficient with a have to remove frost and prevent it from forming on the outer surface of the windshield. Indicator lights. Lights to provide visual indication of operation condition for the difficulties installed directly facing the operator following the lights are most provided. May be provided either basically or special order. Wheel slip light. Intermittent flashing wheel slip light indicate for the wheel slipping control is doing its job with correcting the slips with the throttle. Locomotive power should not be reduced unless the severe lurching threatens the brake. The train note the mere slip of the wheel creep will not activate with the wheel slip light. Automatic standing may take place along with the regulation of power of the wheels. Warning, wheel slide flashing slowly and persistently burning continuously may indicate a pair of sliding wheels, circuit difficulty. Stop the locomotive and make a careful inspection and certification if there are no locked sliding wheels. To the PCS operation light, PC open light. The PCS or pneumatic control switch function automatically reduces the locomotive power in an event of emergency or safety control air brake application occurs. It does so by reducing speed of all engines to idle. Caution: the engine should be off position all trains, and depending on the type of the position locomotive, consider the possible with the PC pneumatic control switch of the lead unit will not act on reduce engine speeds to idle. When the switch is tripped, the PCS opens, indicating light on the control will come when the light will extinguish to the locomotive power restored with the resetting of the pneumatic control switch. Occurs automatically provided the control air brake is recovered, the throttle is returned to idle position. Saying that the light comes to the indicating standing number 1 truck. Switch closed, standing was applied with the number 1 axle. Light is not effective with the manual emergency within the wheel slide standing circuits. Brake warning. A brake warning installed with the units equipped with a dynamic braking line lights indicate with except for the braking current with the operating with the dynamic braking due to the use of the automatic braking light regulated warning light should seldom if they ever come on with they're only momentarily. Dynamic braking may be continued with the brake warning light goes on and off. The braking effort will be rough, and in such case the dynamic braking cutoff switch on the engine control panel of the affected unit should be placed in the opposition event, but the braking light will comes on and does not go out quickly. The braking strength should be immediately reduced to prevent possibility of equipment damage, except for the braking strength can be reduced by moving the throttle to the idle position. Your train control is special extra light is applied with the desired signal light with a special extra light is acquired as desired. Handbrake light. Units equipped with the handbrake light will come on whenever the handbrake is applied with the train line occur. Control circuit with the energizer with the handbrake relay circuit with the train. Therefore, the headlight circuit consists will be on the one. On the handbrake is and set on the equipped with the handbrake light will have the throttles open with the power of the handbrake set with the alarm bell will ring. All units consist warning. If the lead unit mix consists of not equipped with the handbrake light power consists will be applied normally and no alarm will be sound when the throttle is opened by power. Alright, panel light dimensions. Knob lights provide the control of the brightness control stand gauge. Alarm silence button with the alarm bell is located with the control stand with the audibility to the silence persistent ringing such as cause the shutdown of the trailing unit consists. Operator need only to press the button latch if the alarm silence with the relays turns on with the light with the alarm silence button as the indicator that the fault still exists. Remove the light bulb, cause the alarm bell to ring again. Alarm light will continue as long as the fault remains. Ground reset button. The high voltage ground occurred with the 5 main generator different diodes with the group fail with the ground relay operated the drop engine for the speed with the main generator exciter. Alarm bell rings. The high voltage ground fault light with the engine control panel comes on with a similar light with the annunciator panel and the electrical cabinet comes on. Restore engine speed with locomotive power silence with the alarm necessary for the 10 seconds. Press the ground set reset button. Control stand not necessary to isolate the effective before pushing the button. Power will be applied smoothly with protective relay with a reset with a high voltage ground fault light. Engine control panel will go out. The annunciator indicator latch on and then can only be reset by the maintenance personnel. On special orders, some of the automatic ground reset devices may be deployed with the device to reset ground automatically and no action is required by the operator. Generally, the automatic reset devices will lock out with an automatic reset when the ground relay trips occur with frequently too many total times. Note that the ground relay trips may occur along with a circuit interrupter trip, but in such case, the automatic ground relay resets occurs approximately 1/4 minute before circuit breaker is reset. Power will be not reapplied until the circuit interrupter is reset. Tenant call button, call push button. The alarm bell rings will push and press of the button. It's not latching, does not have to be reset. Alright. Mechanical interlocks on the control. The lever and the controller interlock with the reversal and neutral with the throttle become in any position. So B, the selected lever moved into position off 1 through 4 except B. Reversal level and forward or reverse throttle can be moved in any position. Selector level can be moved to any position. Throttle level the idle position. Reversal level can be moved to any position. Selector level may be moved to any position. Throttle level in the stop position. Reversal level can be moved to any position, but can be not removed from the controller. Selector level can be moved on any position. Throttle idle, throttle above idle. Reversal level position cannot be changed. Selector lever can not be moved out of B into and off from 1 to off. It may, however, be moved to desired between 1 and 4. 6. Select your lever in the opposition reverse level to move it in any position. Remove the control of the throttle level. Idle position throttle can be moved with the idle to the stop only. Selector level to B position. Reversal level cannot be moved. Throttle level can be moved in any position. Selector 1, 2, 3, and 4. Reversal level can be moved in any position. Throttle level can be moved in any position. When position 2, 3, and 4 are incorporated with the selector with the manual transmission handle may be removed. Be moved to the position of the reversal level, the forward reverse with the throttle in any position permissible to movement. With the throttle reverse level, the switch to selector 2, 3, and 4 as the same as with selector 1. Air brake control equipment in figure 2A with the braking basic locomotives equipped with the 26L with air brake for the type 26L for the inner equipment only with the type for the air brakes will be discussed with the manual 26L with the air brake control equipment is located at the left of the controller shown in figure 2A with the equipment that consists of the automatic brake independent multiple unit valves. With the multiple unit valve control is installed with the cutoff valve with the train line air pressure automatically adjust the dead end fixture with the part with the 26L equipment is shown in figure 2.9. The cock is accessible locomotive through the side doors of the provided automatic brake valve. The automatic brake valve handle may be placed in 6 operating position figure 210. That's released minimum reduction surface to brush and handle off with emergency. The independent air brake location located below the automatic brake valve handle 2 position, namely release and full application between these 2 position application zones into the self-lapping braking automatically laps off with the flow of the air, maintains brake center and pressure corresponding with the position handling application zone. Suppressing the independent brake valve handle will be the release of the position of the column of any of the brake application existing in the locomotive. Multiple unit valve with the multiple unit MU2 valve located with the left hand side of the air brake stand shown figure 2A. Purpose of it to pilot the F1 selector valve device to enable the air brake equipment of one locomotive unit to control by another the basic MU2 valve with 3 position lead dead trail 6 or 2.6 or trail 2.4. The valve position pushing in and turning on with the desired position. The MU multiple unit 2 valve with the trail 6 or 26 position actuating train line is not used. Actuating aim with the cutout cock without open to the atmosphere that is necessary to provide inadvertent loss of air brakes due to the possible pressure buildup of the actuating line. Your cutoff valve is located with the automatic brake valve housing directly beneath the automatic brake valve handle. This valve is called the following 3 position cutout freight and passenger. Train line pressure adjustment. Train line air pressure adjusting knob located behind the automatic brake valve upper portion of the brake pedestal shown in figure 2A. Brake equipment position operating a locomotive's equivalent to 26L brake on the equipment should be positioned according with the information figure 212. Section 3 Operations.